someone tells that okay, he's gathering some information from the website and he's studying something from the from like, or he's learning something from YouTube, or he's reading some books, papers, newspapers and all this, and he calls that I'm doing a research. So generally, as far as the scientific research is concerned, it is not. In the science, or in the terms of scientific research, we call it a review. Okay, so this term is used for if you are doing a review. We say that when we are studying something online, so we generally call it a review. We don't call it a research. So by research, we mean is that it is a step-by-step study based upon some review, and you do some experimentations to prove it, that it is to prove your point or to prove a hypothesis. So it is actually a systematic method, or it is a step-by-step method in which you try to prove, or you try to study some hypothesis. Okay, so here it is written that the scientific research is a methodological study to prove a hypothesis or answer a question using an experimental process. Okay, so by reading some research paper, this is not a research. By doing something, either by using some computer, by doing some survey, by doing some experiments in the lab, then you try to prove, then you call it a research. So it is actually a creative work. Okay, because how we call it a creative work, because it involves something create, it has some creativity involved. You you try to prove a hypothesis, so that hypothesis has some background. So you say that okay, this the reason behind this is, I think it is based upon this. So you based upon some literature, you create a hypothesis, and now you have to find out the answer, is it true or not. Okay, now the point to prove it involves your creativity. How that to prove, you have to design an experiment, you have to design something out based upon the literature. So it depends upon your creative skills, like how good you are in performing the experiments to prove something, to prove a hypothesis you have created before you have started your research. Okay, so it is actually a creative work undertaken on a systematic basis for increasing the stock of knowledge. So this another point is, by doing a research, if you are doing something which has already been proven, so that generally is not considered research. Yes, you can say that okay, I have also done it, and the person like 10 years before, he has proved this, he is correct. Okay, so generally this is not considered as a research. Research is something new you add to the stock of knowledge. Okay, so this is a research, like creating a application or something like that. So meaning of research, research again, doing multiple research, you can call it like this, or a close careful study, or it is a scientific investigation or inquiry. And you all are a grad student right now. When you come to this end, it becomes very difficult for you to explain your research. Okay, so if you ask me what I am doing, I won't have an answer straight away. But if I ask you, you will be like telling me multiple stories. So research is a systematic process as a of collecting and analyzing the information to increase the understanding of the phenomena under study. So it is another definition of research, and it is the function of the researchers to contribute to the understanding of the phenomena and to communicate that understanding to other. So if you call a grad student or a you actually the when you come to the masters by research, it is kind of your training to become a researcher. Okay, this is your step one of becoming a researcher. In your undergrad studies, by doing your FYPs, we don't, to be very honest, we don't expect a research out of you guys. Okay, the supervisor don't expect us something out of the blue to prove. If you do that, it's an amazing, but if you don't do it, we don't expect it from you. But in your grad studies, when you are doing MS by research, it is a kind of your training. We want to push you to actually study how research is done, and to we actually try to uh, force you to use your brain to increase your creativity. You come up with the ideas, you come with your to your supervisor, sir, I think it's very interesting, I read something on the internet and he has done this, why don't we do something like this? So this is something called a creativity. You come up with the ideas. So this is a kind of your training which is happening in your grad studies. Okay, so you all are a grad students. So and in this training we are trying to make you a good researcher. Okay, because some of you might be interested to do PhDs. So in PhDs, we actually, it's more, it's, I would say it's a more tougher than this research. Your supervisors expect a lot output from you guys, and so it is kind of a difficult. So consider it as your training or an internship, I would say, to understand what is research and how it is done. And this course is designed to help you becoming a good researcher. Okay, so this is the main purpose of this course. So what is a scientific research? It is actually a systematic follow of a sequence of steps. It is an organized process: planning, literature review, evaluation of the questions to be answered, requires the interpretation from the researchers. You can always consult some researchers in that field to understand certain point of views. Anything that can be learned by the book, news, etc., is not research. It is not research. What it is, anyone? It is a review. Research is solving problems that have no known solution by anyone in the world. So this is another point. Okay, so you are trying to increase the knowledge. Okay, so this is also known as the novelty. Okay, so what is novel about this research? This is a very common question asked. This is not known to the world, so this is something new. Okay, scientific research methods, it is an academic. In academic and engineering, you will be mainly involved in the scientific research methods. So the process is quite straightforward. As far as you study something, okay, you do some research, you write your thesis, you write your research papers. Okay, so this is generally expected. And I have got multiple definitions from different sources, so just sharing it with you. So it is a systematic investigation of the scientific theories and hypotheses. What is a hypothesis? Now, this is the second. Anyone? Yes. Speculation. Kind of a speculation, yes. Okay, let's do an activity. Make some hypothesis in your mind about your planned research or anything, whatever you are doing or you are planning to do. I give you 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Make a hypothesis. Okay, make a hypothesis. any hypothesis would be fine. And I might ask few of you. Let's read the definition, then I will ask you. A hypothesis is a single assertion, a proposed explanation of something based upon the available knowledge for something yet to be explained. So a hypothesis doesn't have an explanation. This is something to be proved, and that hypothesis is based upon some, maybe some literature or some idea from the literature. Okay. Okay, and it needs further experimentation to prove the hypothesis. And a hypothesis can be right, can be wrong. Okay, so now let's do a task. Anyone, make a hypothesis. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Very good. This is a very good hypothesis. Yes.
Use of free material that is existence in environment and being the transportation as I said. Use of material that is pre-existing in a pyramid surface. We can use it by through scientific methods. By using scientific methods.
By using scientific method, what you are going to?
We can use it again in pyramid surface.
You can use what again?
That material that is previously used.
Okay. So you can recycle the material in pavement. Okay. Okay. So another, anyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, people from the DL mode. Yes.
Sir, polyester fibers can reduce plastic shrinkage in concrete, but we will do experiment on it and then check it. It may be true or false.
Manzoor, your voice is not very clear. Can you speak again?
Sir, polyester fiber can reduce plastic shrinkage in concrete. That is a hypothesis.
Okay. Okay. Quite understandable. Okay.
Yes, sir. So then we will do experiments from literature. We see the different type of fiber like steel fibers or polythene fibers. These cause like reduction in plastic shrinkage. So we can do like research on this. That polyester fiber may cause reduction in
These
plastic shrinkage.
fibers and its utilization, and it can increase some performance studies. Okay. Okay. Got your point. Anyone?
Shear walls are quantitatively and qualitatively far better than the brace system to build earthquake resistant structures.
Okay. So this is a good hypothesis that shear walls are better than this. Okay. So now, so you are getting the idea. Okay. You.
As I am geomech student, sir, I would say that it is said that normally consolidated layers have zero cohesion.
Okay.
But there's more, sir, I would say that
Exactly. So hypothesis doesn't have an answer straight away. You need some experimentation to prove a hypothesis. Okay, and that hypothesis is based upon some literature or maybe some previous knowledge, but it doesn't have some concrete reasoning behind it that why this happens. So if that thing doesn't have an answer and it needs some experimentation, so you can call it a hypothesis. And you need to develop a hypothesis when you wanted to start your research. You have to, first thing is you have to develop your hypothesis. So that is your step one. And that step one, and a very important point is the hypothesis should not be something which has already been proved. Okay, this is another point. You create a hypothesis. Okay, for example, I'm talking about that shear wall is better than the braced structure, for example, and it has already been proved that shear walls are better than the braced structure, and some performance studies has been done, and everything is available in. Then it is a kind of a dead end. Okay, it becomes very difficult to find the novelty and a research in it. You got my point? So to create a hypothesis, which is your step one in the research, you need to review a lot of papers. Okay, You need to review a lot of papers, at least 10 to 15 recent papers, to create a hypothesis and to create a gap and to create a hypothesis. And then you can start your research, okay, what you are going to do, how you are going to find out about it, and this is the aim. Okay, so what are the steps in the scientific method? Identify a problem, do some study, literature research, formulate a hypothesis, then conduct experiments, results, and conclude your research. So this is quite simple. This is every research students do. Okay, so you have to find out the problem, then you have to study some literature on that problem, then you have to find out a gap in the problem. After finding the gap, you will create a hypothesis, and then you will study how you are going to test the hypothesis. Okay, and then you perform the experiments or using whatever technique you like. So again, the elements of the scientific method are: number one, characterization, then hypothesis, then doing some experimentation, then predictions. Based upon the knowledge, you predict, okay, this is better than this, or this is due to this, or whatever. Based upon the prediction, you make some predictions based upon the knowledge already available, and then you perform the experiments. Again, this is the guideline: define, observe, form the hypothesis, perform the experiments, analyze the results, interpret the data. Okay, analyze the results and interpret the data. So you have a multiple data. So you first analyze the results, you form the graphs, and then after creating the graphs, you interpret the graphs. That, okay, what does it tell? Then you see your hypothesis again at this stage, that was my hypothesis proved right or wrong? Okay, and then if it is proved right, why? You have to find out the reason. You have to explain. And if it is proved wrong, then you have to find out the reason for that as well. And then you will publish your results. So it is a kind of a loop here. Okay, here it is there is a loop that you have to understand, you have to interpret, and then you have to test your hypothesis. So yes. So now this is a very good question. That after interpretation of the data, you have to test your hypothesis. Now question is that do we need to create a hypothesis again, or you should stay with it? So my answer is that whatever the results are, they will either prove your hypothesis right, or they will either prove your hypothesis wrong. Whatever the results are, it is a research itself that you come to know that, like for example, he says a shear wall is better than the braced against earthquake, braced structure. He did his experiments, he come up to the answer, no, braced are better than the shear wall. It is a result, you can publish it. And either he get a right answer, yes, shear walls are better than the brace because it increases the time period or whatever it. So whatever the results you get, you interpret your hypothesis, and after the interpretation you actually publish your results based upon the experiments, and you give some reasoning to that. So if your hypothesis get like you get a wrong, based upon the experiments you find your hypothesis is wrong, don't get it to your heart, oh my god. It is fine, it is completely fine. Okay, so the aim of a researcher is to do research. Okay, so this is at the start when you are formulating your hypothesis, you don't know what the results will tell you. Okay. So the answer to your question is you don't have to make your hypothesis again. Okay, that's fine. Just
Excuse me,
find
sir.
out. reason why your hypothesis got wrong, why you got
Sir,
result. So you need to find out that. Okay. So
excuse me, sir.
yes.
Sir, my question is, will the research will be the valuable if our hypothesis is wrong, or we can publish our research on the means like in journals or somewhat other resources if our hypothesis got wrong?
So you can publish your research based upon your hypothesis. So your question is like, if your hypothesis got wrong, so will you be able to publish it or not? Is that, am I right? Is this your question?
Exactly, sir. This is my question.
Yes, you can publish your research. Whatever you don't have to tell in your publication that your hypothesis got wrong in the during your experimentation. You don't have to tell that. You just publish your result, whatever you got, and inshallah it will get published. Yes, Shahid, you have a question?
इसी को थोड़ा सा वो क्या कहते हैं वर्डिंग चेंज करके कह लें इज नॉट फाइंडिंग एनीथिंग आल्सो फाइंडिंग
Sorry.
I mean is not finding anything is also a finding हम ये कह सकते हैं
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Okay, so let's move on. Scientific method. So scientific method is actually refers to the way to investigate a phenomena, get new knowledge, correct errors and mistakes, and the test your hypothesis and theory. So it is actually the methodology you adopt to investigate your research. What does it need? It needs intelligence, imagination and creativity. As I have discussed it earlier, that you need to be creative in devising an experimentation. For example, I will be very honest with you. Generally, if you want to do some experimentation, what people do is they follow the standards, ASTM, British standards. Okay, so these experimentations are already developed for some tests, and they are well established and they are accurate. If you perform some experiment based upon that, it's fine. Now my question is, if I in my PhD or in my masters by research, if I follow a standard, so does it involve a creativity or does it not? It will not involve creativity because it has already been developed. But the second point is, before you get to the point that okay, we should not use ASTM standards, no, I does not mean that. If you want to find out some property, for example, compressive strength of the concrete, for example, the experiment is already been developed, established. You should use that experiment or established method. But in your research, there will be some questions which need to be answered, and to answer those questions, there are no standard available. Then your creativity comes. Okay? Then your creativity comes. You should be able to think, okay, what are my goal? I need to get this property. If the clay is there, okay, I need to study the percentage of the clay in that. Or if you want to study the shear wall, how I can study this shear wall? There is no ASTM standard to test the shear wall. Or I wanted to study the recycled aggregate. Okay, what are the tests which should be performed on the recycled aggregate? There are no tests available on, for example, there are no tests available for the recycled aggregate. So you have to then establish your experiments. You have to develop your experiments based upon the results or the properties you want to investigate, and in that you will develop creativity. Okay, you got my point? So you need to bet you need a creative mind in that as well. So research is very interesting. to be very honest. So it is an ongoing cycle which is constantly developing, improving, and providing more comprehensive models and methods. So engineering research. So are we scientists or engineers? Both, yes. Scientific. Scientific
Yeah.
engineers. Okay. So it is in generally in engineering we do some research and we try to develop some prototypes for our research, and whatever we are trying to achieve, our problem statement, we try to develop some prototypes to get the following problem solved. In science we are generally more focused towards what is available, like studying the nature, studying the water flowing here and there, and the rain coming from the sky, and all these scientific phenomena. And so yes, both are if you are studying something already available, then you can call it a science, or if you are trying to develop something, it's called an engineering. So but I like the term scientific engineers. Yes, people in the DL mode, you have any question?
Yes, sir, I have a question, sir. The difference you just provided regarding engineering research and scientific research. So if I say that I'm understanding the rainfall and the relation between rainfall and runoff, that is scientific. But if I say that using that runoff, I'm trying to know the response of the dam, that is engineering research.
Yes, yes, that is what I've told. That it is a kind of a mix and match. We are not doing some studies related to science, for example, biology, or something like fields related to marine biology and zoology and botany and all, or maybe something related to physics and all these things. Um, we are more focused in our engineering research. We try to find out the problem, and maybe that problem involves some factor of science, and then we have to study the science as well. So that's why when you become an engineer, science is a must. You need to study physics, chemistry, maths, and before that science is a subject in our early ages. And so we need to get the knowledge, we should have the knowledge of both, and then we have to find out the problem which we are trying to solve, and then how you are going to solve. And to either to solve the problem you need to create something like mechanical or electrical engineers do, or you want to create something to help or to solve the problem. So this is a kind of a both. That is what I was trying to. Let's see what written here. Study and build new technologies for designing a product, not concerned with how the world works, that is science, but how to build a product for a specific purpose. Might still involve scientific studies. If this does not exist, study the underlying science, and if it does, study the current technology first. So in our scenarios we actually study both. I won't say we just focus on science. Yes, we focus on the our main focus is on engineering. We try to develop some prototypes, or we try to develop some softwares, applications, or whatnot. But yes, we have to study the science as well related to that. And actually building the final product is the development stage, an iterative process from the prototype to the final product. And then whatever we try to solve, we try to create a program or some kind of a new technology, and then we go through a iterative process from prototype to final product. So there are multiple types of research. So the there are generally two domains, that is fundamental and the other one is applied. So fundamental or basic research is what we need to seek some generalized products or generalization, or aiming at some basic processes, attempt to explain why things happen, tries to get all the facts reports in a technical language. Whereas applied research is actually the studies individual or specific cases without the objects. So it's more variable, and it is more applied. I would by applied we would say that we try to find out the facts behind the problem, okay, and the problems can be a general problem, and it is we the target people are actually common people as well. So this is kind of an applied research, whereas the fundamental research is more specialized research, I would say. And then based upon this, there are further division of quantitative and qualitative research. So quantitative is actually numerical based research, using some numbers to investigate like this is happening, and these are you giving some specific values, like this is the properties like of the material which you are studying, and based upon the iterative study, and then you conclude, okay, this is better than this based upon these results. So this is a quantitative. Qualitative is actually more descriptive, giving reasonings, why, what is the reason behind this, more explanatory research, okay, and to investigate why and how the decision is making. And generally in engineering we focus towards the third part, which is the mixed research, okay. So we do some qualitative research as well, but we should also target the reasons behind that, okay. So qualitative and quantitative both, we try to focus on that. Then there are some other types of research like surveys and other action. They are based upon the field to field, like social disciplines, they don't perform any experiments. So social sciences have different types of research. So this is just a okay. So now, okay, do you want to take a break?
सर नो नो सर सर नमाज का ब्रेक मिल जाए वो बेहतर है सर अभी नहीं
Okay.
सर
Okay, let's take a break or we can finish our lecture at 6:15.
यस सर दैट्स गुड यस सर दैट्स गुड
I think
तो
it's
6:50 में फिर नमाज का जरा टाइम कम होता है
जी सर नमाज का वक्त होगा
because by faces I see that you are already fed up with this course. Yes. Okay, I will make it more interesting. Don't worry. Next time I will make it more interesting. Okay. Yes. Basic and applied की example थोड़ा सा understanding में help हो जाए. चले, let me go back. If you ask me what is an example of a basic or fundamental research and what is the example of an applied research, so in basic or the fundamental research is that you are actually studying something which is very well versed, okay, and which is more related to a specific domain, what, for example, physics and chemistry, okay, and in that domain we are targeting a very specific, like gravitational waves, for example. See, it's more like a basic research because it is not related to any person at all, okay. People doing research in physics are more interested, or doing research in the astronomy and all these domains. Whereas applied research are studies individual or specific cases without the objective to generalize. So what does it mean is that it is more specific, but it has a broader audience. Okay, so more focused, like more audience can have impact if the research is done on this domain. More people can understand this research. It's if the fundamental or basic research, so it is reported in technical language of the topic, so only the people with the knowledge of that topic can understand. Okay, where it reports in a common language, broader audience. You got the idea? दोनों को हिट करे. फंडामेंटल हो, और फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू टॉक टू मी अबाउट, मैं अपनी रिसर्च से एक एग्जांपल दे सकता हूँ. ठीक है, मेरी रिसर्च वाज ऑन द फर्स्ट डोमेन. What I did was I studied the corrosion in an aggressive environment, corrosion of concrete in an aggressive environment. So what do I mean by aggressive environment? I studied the performance of concrete in the severe environment. Okay, so I would say that generally people who don't have knowledge about the sewers will get effective and they want to know what is the performance or the lifespan. But the research I did was more focused, because to study the corrosion in the sewer environment, you need some knowledge of you need to know the biology involved over there which causes the corrosion. Okay, so in that scenario, so it is a kind, I'm just creating it to be in both the domains. So if I talk specific, like how the corrosion happens, which material performs better against the sewer environment, so then it is more specified. You're getting my point? It is more specified, it's more focused on one topic, and it's related to only those people who know what happens over there, and which are very few, to be very honest. Generally people are not interested in the biology in the sewer. I'm being very honest with you, even I was not interested. Okay, but this is but if I talk about the lifespan of the materials, now everyone becomes okay, now this is something interesting. Like what is the lifespan of a sewer pipe if it is made from concrete, and now if it is made from this concrete and this concrete, which concrete is better in that environment, and which concrete has a better lifespan? So now it becomes interesting. So now more people who don't have a background in chemistry or biology or cements or all these things will be interested to know. Okay, so then it goes into the second domain. So when I went for a presentation, that project was actually given when I was doing my research in Australia. So I recently joined University of New South Wales, and there is a, like in Pakistan there is a public health departments. So in Australia there is a public health department known as Sydney Water, and the aim is there to provide the sewer pipes and the water supply to all of the Sydney. So they are spending like a lot of money in the rehabilitation of their sewer pipes, and they are like they wanted to involve the academia. So they contacted UNSW, and over there was a team working over there. So I recently joined as a PhD student, and they add me in that team. So I started doing research into that area. So when I was giving the presentations, I remember there was a technical, I would say, a technical seminar in which the industry is invited by the academia. So there are different research student who has to it was called a 3-minute research presentation. So there were like a lot of industries sitting, and there were people from the transport industry, there were people from the concrete industry, there were people who are working in the government bodies. And so there was a room like this, and maybe 50 to 80 people were sitting, and we PhD students were tasked to present your research in 3 minutes. So we were given a time of 3 minutes. So there was a person who comes and he was like, I'm trying to solve the problem of traffic congestion. And then the other person came and he told, okay, I'm trying to create something related to surveying and GIS modeling and this and that. So when I came and I also presented my, okay, this is my research and whatever. So when I presented my research, I didn't went into this domain. That is the fundamental. Or basically, I started talking, okay, there is a bacteria known as Theobacillus, and it creates sulfuric acid in this and that. And I didn't go into, because the people who are sitting, they are not interested in that. Okay, but when I stand in front of them, I go into this applied research. Okay, and I told them, okay, if you use your concrete in this way, your lifespan of the sewer is this. And if you, and they asked me why, and I told, okay, this happens because of the reduction of the pH of the concrete. And this, so what approach I did, I used was common language, reporting in the common language instead of reporting in the technical language. And when I published my research papers in corrosion science or in construction and building materials, I use this language. I go into the nitty-gritties and explaining all the phenomena that are happening and doing some beautiful pictures, this and that. But when I was standing in front of the industry, I showed that my research is applied. You got the answer? Okay, thank you. Okay, now another interesting question. What is discovery or innovation? Or invention, sorry. Discovery or invention? Yes, anyone?
So discovery is something that is already present but later on detected, and invention is when we invent something new. There's no concept of it before.
Okay, yeah, you were also right. Yeah, exactly. Discovery is detecting, okay, not creating. Discovery is detecting, and to be very honest, it can be an accidental as well. Okay, like for example, discovery of gravity by apple falling on the head, or provide it provides
Columbus
insight,
discovered.
help to advance the understanding. So scientific discovery, it is actually the observation of the new phenomena. Being an engineer, generally we are not very much concerned about, we are not actually trying to focus on the discovery. We are more focused towards problem solving. We are trying to focus on inventions. That is generally our aim. But if you do discovery, it's fine. Your publication would be in a very good journal. But if you do invention, generally you get a lesser, like if you study the type of journals available, there are the journals which publish the discovery are known as Nature, or these journals or related to science. They have an impact factor of like maybe 30, 40 or something like that. But if you do some research and you present some innovation or invention or creation which you have done, or you have studied something, so generally those journals have an impact factor up to 8, 9, 10. So this is a common observation which I am sharing it with you. So scientific discovery is actually the observation of a new phenomena, action, events that helps explain the previously acquired scientific evidence. So you have some knowledge, but you don't know why you discover something, and that discovery helps you to prove the previous problem. Okay, sometimes accidental includes procuring evidence, description, and explanations may result in invention of the objects, processes, and techniques. Okay, so it can help in that. What is invention? It is creating a new object, idea, theories using pre-existing one. So it is something you are creating. So in invention, you need some creativity. May also be the improvement of existing objects, ideas, and theories. For example, better light bulb. So yes, you can actually improve the already available inventions. So that is an invention itself. Like there are invention happening on the batteries, increasing the life of the battery and all these things. So yes, you can always do invention on an already invented thing. May create scientific breakthrough, requires experimentation, trial, error, iteration, sometimes accidental as well. Invention considered synonym with innovation as well. Something new, innovate, to innovate something, often goes in parallel with the discovery as well. So why research? So now it's getting interesting. So why research? So those who love to be creative, who wants to answer the question why, how, what, they are interested in research. You will have some students which will opt for 2 courses and then they will leave their degrees, and there will be majority of the students will opt for doing some research, spending some time in the labs on the computers and doing some surveys or doing some experimentation. So those that is a second approach. So why research? So this is the answer generally. So you want your name, you want something to publish, you want your name to be announced abroad, you want to go to some scientific conferences and you can tell, okay, I've done this. So this is something everyone wants, to be very honest. And research offers the pleasure of solving a problem or a puzzle, and then you create some creative solutions for that. You identify the problem and you try to solve it. And to be very honest, we all have this thing in us. You if you were given a problem, okay, this desk is not working properly, you start playing with it, you start to do it something, you try to solve the problem. Okay, so research helps to develop new methodologies. We are surrounded by our social research as well. So research is everywhere, to be very honest. Everyone is doing research in his or her domain. So the significance, what you achieve by doing research, is research inculcates scientific inductive thinking. So that's why I told you in the start that this is a kind of your step one, your first ladder to understand, to give you a taste of research. So the grad studies, and this is a very important step, to be very honest, and everyone should focus on it. So research inculcates the scientific and inductive thinking, and it promotes the development of logical habits of thinking and organization. So the role of research in the several fields of applied economics, whether related to business or to economy as a whole, has greatly increased in the modern times. So research is happening in every domain. Okay, it's not only in civil engineering. So research provides the basis for nearly all the government policies in our economic system. Yes, our economic system has some flaws, and those flaws are the problems which need to be solved by research. Research has a special significance in solving various operational and planning problems of business and industry. And research is equally important for social scientists studying social relationships and seeking answers to various social problems as well. So research is not in engineering, It is happening in every field. Motivation. So I'm bad in giving motivation lectures, to be very honest. So I hope after this slide, most of you start thinking, okay, I'm not going to do research. But I will try to motivate you that to it's getting a research degree. You will get a taste or a flavor of doing a PhD in the future. So it's your a kind of an training, as I said. So it would be a very challenging as well. So that is, if you like challenges, so do MS by research. You will end from NUST. So. Uh, okay, so I'm not going further. That's it. I'm not. Uh, okay, why do research? It gives you a career in if you want to do some to achieve a career in academia and you want to work in some scientific organization, research institutes. So it's very important to have some research expertise. Okay, even in the industry as well, it's very important to have some research background knowledge. Only the bookish knowledge is not required. Generally some knowledge for let me give you an example here again. So what is a research, what it will tell you. When I was doing my master's by research in NUST, I'm your senior as well. So I was working on a fire performance of concrete, and I was working in an institute in a consultancy. So in the consultancy, in my job, there comes a project that this building is fire damaged. So there was a fire and it has damaged the structure. So, and at the same time, I was doing my research on fire. So I was studying what happens when the structure got burnt and what happens when a structure is exposed to fire and all this thing. So it becomes very interesting. So it becomes a challenging for me to, and okay, so in the industry, when I was doing my job, my knowledge of research was helping me. So this is the motivation I can give you. So there might be some scenarios in which your knowledge of research will help you in your industrial job or whatever. Okay. I won't agree with the one, it improves the quality of life, but yes. Still, I got the slides from someone else. Okay, so what's the time? So people in the DL mode, do you have any question? Just few slides, 2 or 3, 6:15, 10 minutes. Okay. Why do we need research? The main purpose of research is to contribute to the developing knowledge, as we have discussed earlier, to solve a problem, to develop greater understanding, to test or validate a theory, to come up with a better way to solve a problem, to create more interest among the researchers. So it's a kind of a um, it's a very interesting process, and the better interest is that when you get a chance to go to a conference. So when you go to a conference, so I remember one time, it's another story. I went to a conference, and over there I presented my research. Okay, if you have this material and if you're exposed to this environment, this happens. I was presenting my research, and everyone was like, wow, amazing. Another person in the same session, another person came after me, or maybe one or two after one or two person. He comes, he presented the same research, and he said that whatever I have done is wrong. And he was like, I did it this, and this is the result. So now it becomes very interesting. Everyone was like, I watching me, and I was like, what is happening here? I was not expecting that another person would come and he will try to prove my research wrong. And then I find out, so there was some question and answer session. After the question and there was a tea break. So in my tea break, there was a colleague, and he come he come to me, and I was drinking a tea, and he went and find that guy. He bring that guy to me, and then, okay, you were telling me this was happening. Why the person told about and his results are completely opposite to you? That was contradictory. And he was like, no, I did this research and this, and I started telling me, maybe you might have done this, and that's why your research are different. And after that, I found that guy was gone. So he just come, and he bring both of us in on the same table, and we were starting arguing with each other, and that person was gone. So it's a very interesting thing, to be very honest. When you get a chance to go to the research conferences, so I want you all to experience the research conference as well. So I'm planning to create a mini conference scenario in our course.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
सर हमारी क्लास में कोई रिसर्चर है जो बार बार स्टूडेंट्स को रिमूव कर रहा है इस मीटिंग से.
Sorry.
सर कोई बंदा है मीटिंग में जो बार बार स्टूडेंट्स को रिमूव कर रहा है.
Yes.
अच्छा. Okay. We will see about that. Don't worry. This lecture is already recorded, and we will take care of him as well. Don't worry. And the person who is doing, please don't do it. You don't want to see the dark side of me. Okay? Don't let me find you and then give you a hard punishment. So just keep it that way. And this is not a threat. Okay, so after so the important point is, what were we discussing? Conference, yeah. So I was telling you, I'm trying to, if the things allow me, if the things didn't get closing of the university and going into a DL scenario or something like that. So in the last 2 weeks, I'm planning to create, I will try to create a mini conference type scenario in which all of you will have a chance to present your research proposal. So in this course, we will be making a research proposal. You all will be making a research proposal. So I will be giving you the instructions how you can make, but you will get a chance to present your research, whatever you want to present related to your field. And I will try to create that, or I will try to mimic the scenario or an environment. I might invite some faculty members to evaluate your research or this. So
Excuse me, sir.
in the research, a very important, yes.
सर तो जब मतलब आपने भी प्रेजेंट किया और जो दूसरा वो पर्सन था, तो सर अगर उसका मतलब रिसर्च गलत था या जो
अच्छा,
कंडीशन वगैरह
इसकी
थी तो
research-
वो कैंसिल हो गया.
अब मैं ये तो नहीं कहूंगा कि मेरी रिसर्च गलत थी.
लेकिन सर मेहनत तो दोनों ने की थी ना
Because in
सर.
the DL mode. Yes, you have a question. जी मंजूर.
सर आपने कहा कि मतलब जो दूसरा पर्सन था तो उसने कहा कि मैंने जो रिसर्च किया मेरे सारे रिजल्ट्स मतलब आपसे कंट्राडिक्टरी आ रहे थे, तो उसने
हाँ,
भी मेहनत की थी तो उसका वो रिसर्च कैंसिल हो गया, गलत हो गया या.
वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन मंजूर.
इसके बारे में सर अभी मैं सोच रहा हूँ कि मतलब अगर एक बंदे ने 6 महीने या 8 महीने इतने वो मेहनत की और बस एंड पे आके किसी के साथ वो कंट्राडिक्टरी हो जाए, तो इससे अच्छे कि वो पहले से दूसरे से मुख्तलिफ रिसर्च
And
करे
to be
ताकि
very
किसी के
honest,
साथ.
this is the beauty of research, that it can contradict the research. And to be very honest, if you start reading, and Manzoor, this is a very good question. I'm not. If you start reading a certain topic, for example, sorry, I only remember your hypothesis that shear wall is better than braced. So you will find someone who will say that, okay, no, shear wall is better than brace. You will find some people who will say brace is better than shear wall, and both of them will give reasoning, and maybe both of the reasonings are good. And to be very honest, there are some variables which we ignore generally. There are some variables which are not highlighted in the research, which are not presented in the research. Maybe, for example, I might have done research on some different scenarios, some different temperatures, humidities, scenarios, and the other person has done it at different. So, and this has not been highlighted in the presentation. So it looks that our research is same and our research is contradicting each other. Okay.
यस सर, तो मतलब कि अगर उसकी जो
So I
टेम्परेचर है
won't
या
say
जो
his research is
कंडीशन
wrong.
थी.
His research is published. My research is also published. Okay.
ओके सर सही
Huh. So now the question is, which research is to be followed? Okay, now this is a second question, and it is a very good question. That whose research I should follow if I'm working on the same domain, okay, and I come up with the one research paper who is telling me this is right, and the other research paper who is telling me this is right. So which to be followed? First is you will do literature review on that and try to find what are most people saying. Okay, like if majority of people are saying one point and there are just one or two people who are saying the other point, then there is a possibility this one is right. Okay. Secondly, you can further validate it by yourself. You can further, if you are doing research in the same domain, you can further validate it by doing the experiments and then supporting one of the hypotheses. And this is, to be very I will be very honest with you, this is a very common thing that happens in the research. This is a very common thing. I'm not telling something out of the blue that this happened. If you start reading research papers on one area, after 10 paper you get multiple answers. Multiple answers. I will be very honest with you. And multiple hypotheses and multiple conclusions. Generally, what happens is sometimes people try to, so there is um, a problem with us human being is we are egoistic. What is a, we make a hypothesis and sometimes our hypothesis get wrong and our ego does not let us to report what is right. We stay with our hypothesis. No, whatever we have done is, our hypothesis is correct and we try to make something out of the results which supports our hypothesis. Actually, that's not the case. So there are multiple reasons behind that. Okay.
एक्सक्यूज मी सर एक्सक्यूज मी
Yes.
सर सर जिस तरह आपने कहा कि हम लिटरेचर रिव्यू कर लेते हैं सर,
Hmm.
तो सर हमारे पास मतलब जो रिसर्च पेपर पब्लिश हुए तो उसके साथ कुछ ना कुछ एविडेंसेस तो होंगे. तो जो अगर सपोज मतलब जो जिस टॉपिक पे रिसर्च हुई और उसमें कम रिसर्च पेपर भी है तो वो भी तो हम गलत उसको नहीं कह सकते क्योंकि उसने एविडेंस के साथ उसको हमें पेश किए, फिर वो पब्लिश क्यों हुआ है मतलब.
So Manzoor, I'm not saying the other research is wrong. Okay. The other, generally, I'm saying that if most people are giving one answers and let's say one or two people are giving the other answer, they have some reason behind it. You have to see what they are saying. You have to go deeper into their, why they are saying why they are saying this. Okay, you can't say that his research is wrong and your research is right. Okay, you
ओके
can
सर.
either prove it by yourself as well. Yes, you have a question.
If I'm doing research in domain which has not been recently explored much, तो उस केस में क्या कौन से मेथड अडॉप्ट करें कि अपनी जो इनिशियल स्टाफ है उसके हमें अपने जो भी रिसर्च पेपर पढ़े होंगे तो जिस डोमेन में रिसर्च करना चाह रहा हूँ वहाँ पे
Acha, very good question. So now if you are trying to study a domain which has not been researched, so and it is very novel, it is very new, then your creativity comes, and your creativity should be very high. And the best part is those domains are very highly published, highly cited research. It becomes the fruit you eat after publishing your research, if that domain is new, is very tasty, I would say. Okay, so now how you should do research in that domain? First thing is you have to try to find out the problem. Now the problem is new, there is no one who has tried to solve it. Okay, now your creativity comes and you will try to do some hit and trials. What you do, you will do some hit and trials. You will try, okay, how I can solve this, maybe I can do this and it might solve. You do this and your answer is no, it's not working. You then again do some create. So in that scenario your literature will be very limited, but you will get something out of it. Okay, so you will need a lot of creativity in that. Okay. To be very honest, when you try to publish a research, there are some journals who doesn't go very deep. Okay, so there are some journal people who you can just give them some money and then they can publish. So there are some journals like that, and it's very common. I remember when I was doing my master's, so there are some students who used to do that to get, and they can publish it very quickly. But generally, there is a process known as a review process. So in the review process, that is actually where your research get evaluated by the researchers. And the interesting part is the researchers are anonymous. You don't know who is reviewing your research. They ask you, do you have a suggestion, like some person should review? You can say that okay, maybe some person from there, your supervisor can help you in that. But generally that is an anonymous review process, in which if the reviewer is technically sound in that research domain, then he will be asking you very tough questions. And if you are unable to answer those questions, your ego driven research will not be published. Okay, last slide for today. Who will be your supervisor? So a supervisor will be a PhD like me, who knows everything about nothing. Okay, so that is a good picture I got from somewhere. So, but it would be a interesting experience, and I think we should finish it at this slide, and we will continue it in the next lecture. People in the DL mode, do you have any question?
सर
Yes.
सर नॉवेलिटी शर्त है रिसर्च में
Yes, Fakhre Alam.
सर नॉवेलिटी शर्त है रिसर्च में
You are asking me what is novelty in research?
आई एम आस्किंग इज इट नेसेसरी फॉर रिसर्च
Okay, is it necessary for to have a novelty in the research? Generally, to get your research published, you need novelty.
बट सर आई
No,
सीन मैनी
some new
लिटरेचर्स
idea. Okay, some creativity. Okay, so it is
But
generally
sir-
required. Okay, people in the DL mode, you can put your attendance in the comments of this lecture. You can put your name over there.
एक्सक्यूज मी सर
Yes.
सर आपका जो रिसर्च एरिया है वो कौन सा है, कोरोजन वाला है या इसके अलावा कोई और?
My research domain is actually I did my master's and PhD in concrete technology. So my domain is that, and I'm focused on durability of concrete. Yes. यार सारी चीजें पहले लेक्चर में ही सीखनी है? जर्नल जो होते हैं ना, दे आर एक्चुअली साइंटिफिक, एक वे ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन होता है. Journal is a way of communication between the scientists who are sitting throughout the globe. And the journal is published after some journals are published quarterly, some are published maybe monthly, some are published weekly, and they have the volumes. And people who do their research, they submit their research to those journals so that it gets international audience. For example, when you are doing research, you don't see that, okay, from like who did it, like it's a general, maybe you start reading some papers from China, from America, Australia, Canada, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. So there are people, researchers in every country, and they are doing their research. Okay, and the interesting thing is the journals doesn't have any borders, they doesn't have any boundaries, so anyone can publish from Afghanistan as well, irrespective. If you do a research and you proved your point, you can get your research published in those journals. And when you publish it, what you are doing is you are actually communicating your research to the broader audience. What, so people may be sitting, there is a person who is sitting in America in some university, and he is also working in the similar domains in which you researched, and he come, okay, in 2021 your paper is published, or maybe 22 your paper is published, and he sees, oh, very interesting. So he doesn't know you, but your research gets to him. Okay, so this is a way of communication. You don't send an email to a professor and then tell him, मैंने ये काम किया and I've done this and that, and you start telling him. No, if he is interested in your research, that research has already been read by him. Okay.
Sir, I want to ask a question.
There are different publishing authorities who publish the research, and then there is a committee in the research. So there is an editor-in-chief, there are editors, there are like reviewers. So there is a proper technical committee in each journal, especially in the good journals. And that technical committee is generally maybe a professor in Canada, or a professor in Australia or New Zealand, or so that technical committee is those people who are very specialist in that field. And the journal is not Journal of Civil Engineering, so it is, journals are very specific, to the point. For example, in my domain, there are journals, cement and concrete research. So now that journal will publish only research related to cement and concrete. You can't publish research on soils in that. Okay, and the technical committee will be the people who are specialized in the domain of cement and concrete. You're getting my point? People in the DL mode, any question? Yes,
Sir, I
Usman.
want to ask. Sir, if we select any topic for research, then how can we check that already some research has been done on the same topic or not? Do we have to see in all the already published journals?
So the question is how you can decide the topic of research, and how you come to know that this research has already been done or not. So that's why the step literature review is important. So I will discuss it in detail in the literature review, but when you the first step, that is identifying the problem, in that step you will also need in that step you will also need to study some papers, and then you will try to find out the gap, and then after creating the gap you will see that is it done by anyone or not. Okay.
Right, sir.
Gap means novelty. There, gap means something which has not been proved or done, something which is novel. Okay, and by gap I mean maybe it should not be something a huge gap. It can be a very small gap as well. Like someone has done research on this domain, but he might have skipped some very small part of he might forget to perform a single experiment, which can further help him to uh, support his results. So that is a gap. You can work on it, and you can support his research, and that is a nobility itself as well. Okay,
Right, sir.
thank you very much. Any other question? Yes, Yunus.
Sir, sorry for I've just
Yes,
joined the group on Teams. You kindly accept my request, sir.
uh, Yunus, please. What's your question?
Sir, my request was to join the Teams group. Sir, I've sent the request. Could you kindly accept it?
Uh, to join what? Sorry.
Sir, to join the research group on Teams.
To join the research group.
On Teams. Sir, this Teams channel on.
Ah, okay, okay. So you can just put your name in the comments.
Okay.
So they haven't joined it. So you have to join the. Okay, what you can do is you can send your name to your CR, and he will record your attendance for today's lecture, and try to. I thought every student has already joined the team, or everyone has become a member. If you are not a member, please become a member of this group on Teams. Okay, Hamza, your question. Hamza, okay. Hazrat Khan, what is your question?
Excuse me, sir. Am I
Excuse me, sir.
Sorry.
am I audible, sir?
Yes, I can hear your voice. What
सर
is your question?
सर मैं एक्चुअली सर 2019 बैच से हूँ सर मेरा आरएम कोर्स रहता है मैं एमसीई से हूँ मिलिट्री कॉलेज ऑफ इंजीनियरिंग सर तो अभी सर मैंने वहाँ से ट्रांसफ़र किए कोर्सेज लेकिन एक हफ्ते में सब कुछ कंफर्म हो जाएगा ये प्रोसेस एक हफ्ता लेता है तो सर मैंने दोनों क्लासेस ली है
ठीक है, आप सीख से हैं, डिफरेंट डिपार्टमेंट से हैं।
सर मैं स्ट्रक्चर इंजीनियरिंग कर रहा हूँ लेकिन मैं एमसीई से हूँ मिलिट्री कॉलेज ऑफ इंजीनियरिंग
एमसीई
रसालपुर
से हैं।
बिल्कुल सर बिल्कुल सर
ठीक है, चले आप इस कोर्स में रजिस्टर हो जाए, तो फिर
ओके सर
कोई मसला नहीं है, आप क्लासेस अटेंड करें, कोई इशू नहीं है।
ओके सर थैंक यू सर
ओके, अकील।
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, Akhil,
Excuse me,
what is
sir.
your question?
Yes, sir. So, my question is, if someone wants to submit a research paper, so is it necessary that he should belong to an institute, or anyone can submit a research paper by its own?
Uh, can you repeat your question? What does it ask?
I want to say that if someone wants to publish a research paper in a journal or in anything, so is it necessary that he should belong to an institute like NURS, UT Peshawar, etc., or anyone can submit?